everyone, Cristina Perez Hesano, Verdicts Vogue, and I have the honor of being here today with Erika Contreras. Welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your firm.
Sure. So I'm a partner at Panish, Shea, Ravipudi. We're a personal injury firm. We have offices in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Phoenix, Arizona. And we essentially just handle serious, catastrophic, personal injury cases. We're a litigation firm, and we handle the cases from start to finish.
And when you say litigation firm, I know that there's a number of lawyers, and you were actually one of the first female Latina partners at that firm.
Yeah, I'm the first female partner at the firm. Yeah.
First female partner, first female Latina partner.
Yes.
Yes. And when you say litigation, tell me what, for those who are listening, tell us what that means.
Sure. So I think in every state that we have, it's very important to get your case in the queue. So every case that we have, we file it. We take depositions. We, retain experts. It's really the art of working up the case and preparing it for trial. All of our cases that we handle them as trial cases. And so a majority of the time, because they're prepared to go to trial, they resolve before trial, but we're ready to go in case the case needs to get tried.
Okay. And for those who are listening, I mean, there's a difference. You hear personal injury attorney, and a lot of the injury firms here in Arizona that are the advertising firms tend to be pre-litigation. It means that they never actually file. So it never actually gets a case number, and it doesn't go through the official, if you may, the official process of like the court proceeding, where you're on the other end, which my firm has litigation as well, which is you file the case and you're off to the races.
Yes. And I think that's really an advantage in a case, because once you file a case, there's so many deadlines that really force the other side, the defendants and the plaintiffs, to keep a certain pace. If you're in pre-litigation and you're not filed, there's certain things you can do to kind of put pressure, but you're very limited.
Well, I'll tell you, with at least in Arizona, one of the main things that I see that delay our cases is the trial date. Here, we don't obtain a trial date until we're done with discovery.
Yeah.
And every time we have an extension of a deadline, they automatically extend the trial setting conference, which I know is different depending on the state. So I actually litigated a case in California earlier in 2025, which was completely different. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how the process goes in California and also Nevada.
Yeah. So I think the discovery process is very similar in the sense that, there's written discovery, there's depositions. The good thing is that the defense firms, they work the same in any state, and they have to report up. So any event that happens in the case, whether it's a deposition or discovery, it forces the defense firm to write a memo to the carrier. This is what's happening with this case. If it's a medical deposition, they have to provide impressions to the carrier. So all of these events, whether it's Arizona, California, or Nevada, it really kind of helps the carrier keep informed and keep your case evaluated properly. Because what you don't want is you don't want to get close to trial and the carrier not really know how to properly evaluate your case. You're thinking you're a 6-figure case or a 7-figure case, and the carrier still thinks it's soft tissue because they weren't updated by the defense as to the current medical treatment.
And so I know that depends on the defense attorney, but what, as an attorney, what can you do to ensure that adjuster, who often has a couple of lines of walls of communication, right, that they're not automatically getting the information? How do you make sure that they do get that information?
Yeah, I mean, I think the noticing the depositions, it really does force a memo on their side. In California and Nevada, there's things that you can do, like a demand that really creates a deadline for them to evaluate the file. In California, there's a Code of Civil Procedure 998, which is a settlement demand, and it's limited to 30 days. They have 30 days to respond. If they don't respond after the 30 days, it's deemed withdrawn by its own terms. If you go to trial and you exceed the 998 offer, you get interest, you get expert costs. There's all these wonderful penalties
I
that
see.
get put against the defense attorney and the defendants for not accepting a reasonable offer.
So in a way, the 998 offer, I would say it's similar to, it's a statutory offer. It would be similar to, say, an offer of judgment in a way here.
Right.
But the 998 offer is something that's done once you're in litigation. It's not a time limits pre-litigation demand.
Right. And there's a pre-litigation demand called a 999 demand.
Okay.
And it has certain requirements as well. But those are just the little things that force the defendant and the adjuster to kind of look at the file and really take a good evaluated look as to what the damages are, what is the liability at issue, and then either accept or reject. They can counter too, but it just creates some sort of momentum for the case.
Sure. And so let's take a step back, because I'm all about learning this stuff, right? I can nerd out on this all day. But for those who are listening and want to learn a little bit more about you, tell us about yourself and just your history.
Sure.
And how you became an attorney or entered the practice of law.
Sure. So I'm a first generation Mexican American. My parents immigrated here from Mexico. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in this low income neighborhood called Pico-Union.
Okay. Pico-Union?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's right by the Staples Center for people who are familiar with LA. I am one of 4 children. And growing up, I mean, we grew up in a very low income neighborhood. We didn't get a lot of information about college and opportunities and things like that. I knew I was going to be an attorney because someone had mentioned to me, and I don't think it was a compliment. I tell people this, I talk too much. And somebody said, like, you should be a lawyer. But I think they meant it as a
backhanded compliment.
Yeah, it was a backhanded compliment. So I thought, yeah, I want to be a lawyer. But I didn't know what that was. And I didn't know anybody who
When
was
do
an
you
attorney.
think you knew you wanted to be a lawyer?
I had to have been like 8 or 9.
Really?
But it was the concept of being an attorney,
Okay.
What do I know what they did? At that
Do you
point.
remember what attracted you to the concept of being an attorney?
Somebody put it in my mind. And my mom, she used to take me to work in the summers. She had 4 kids. It was very hard to afford childcare. And so she would take me to work with her. And I remember she worked for someone who was an attorney. And when we would get there in the morning, he would leave in his suit with a little briefcase. And I was like, that is so cool. I want to have a little suit and a briefcase. But I didn't really know what he did. And so it went from the concept of being an attorney to this person symbolizes what an attorney is. I still don't know what they do, but I like whatever that is. And then once I really got into, I think it was my late teens, I joined like the YMCA Youth in Government. And you were able to see people advocate in the legislature. And so then I thought, okay, this must be what an attorney does.
That's so interesting. So when you became involved, what triggered that wanting to be involved in such an organization? Because many people may not know that that's available.
Yeah, the YMCA at our neighborhood, they had this program called the Youth in Government, and it was really sort of to empower inner city youth and to give them opportunities to go outside of their neighborhood to see how the government worked, but also how there were different careers in government that you could do. You could do policy, you could do advocacy. I mean, there's all these things that you could do. And they took us on a bus trip to Sacramento.
Okay.
And so you have like 30 inner city kids on a charter bus going to Sacramento. They let us inside the Capitol building, and we were able to see the legislature. We were able to put on our own bills as if we were asking. We were making legislature, and it was fun. And it was that sense of purpose that sort of really got me inspired.
And so sitting here today, can you visualize yourself at that moment as you're walking into the building? Tell us about, I just want you to describe it.
Yeah, no, it was amazing because I'm a teenager and I'm still pretty limited in my exposure to the world. My parents were very protective, so they didn't let us go anywhere without them. And so there's only so many places you can go with your parents. And you walk into this building and they gave us very strict instructions, no, don't make too much noise, all of these things. So you're scared when you walk in because you don't want to get in trouble. But you're walking in and there's beautiful halls with this this stone and all this rich wood. And it was a beautiful thing to see. At the time, it was just impressive visually. I mean, my exposure to the government was very limited, but it was just so impressive to be there and to know that very important things happened there.
Well, I think that says a lot, right? Because something that may today, if we're used to walking into these buildings all the time, right? So we walk into these buildings, we've seen some buildings are nicer than others, but to go back and be like, okay, you have teenage Erika walking in and seeing this building, and what a lasting impression it's made in the trajectory it had in your career or in your life.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of interesting that now we make important things happen, you know, in our cases, in the lives of our clients. We walk into these buildings, and in a lot of these cases, it's David versus Goliath.
Sure.
And, you know, you're making these drastic changes for these people. And it is still very inspiring. Every time we get something, some of the cases that we resolve, it's not just monetary. We're also able to get non-economic terms, you know, changing of policy. We've had some laws enacted in the name of our clients in California.
So give us an example of that, because a lot of times people think, oh, and I'm sure you get this when you go to trial and you have to voir dire potentially. Well, are you one of those attorneys that are just going to ask for money or something like that? And so, but tell us about some of the non-economic changes that you've been able to achieve as an attorney for your clients.
So I had a case a couple of years ago. It involved the wrongful death of a 14-year-old girl. It was against the Yucaipa Mesa Unified School District. She was a 14-year-old girl. She had a long history, very well documented history of asthma. On Halloween, she goes from her classroom, which is separate from a field that they're going down to do some Halloween activities. It's a long walk. And when she gets down to the field, she tells the teacher, I'm not feeling very well. Teacher says, at first, you know, she's ignored a little bit because they probably think she doesn't want to do what they're supposed to be doing. After she keeps insisting she doesn't feel well, the teacher sends her back up that hill to her classroom to get her inhaler.
Okay.
She goes to go get her inhaler. She tries the inhaler. It's not working. She's a good kid, a good student. She doesn't want to get in trouble. She walks back down to the teacher and says, I'm not feeling well and my inhaler is not working. Other kids in the group notice she seems out of breath. The kids, just who have no medical experience, nothing, they're concerned for her. So the teacher says, fine, go up to the nurse, which is up the hill again. Go up to the nurse and tell her. Sends her with another little kid. She never makes it up to the nurse.
Oh, wow.
Halfway up, she collapses. She goes into cardiac arrest and she eventually dies. Mm-hmm. So in that case, first of all, at the time I had a 14-year-old daughter when I was when we were handling that case. And so whenever we have cases with kids, no matter what their age, you know, whether it's a 30-year-old daughter or son or a 1-year-old, you always put yourself in the position of the parent. You know, it could be your kid. So there was that aspect of it. And so it just made me feel so upset on a personal level because she shouldn't have died.
Indifference.
It was just there were so many failures on so many different levels. You know, it turns out the teacher wasn't really aware that she had asthma, never read her file. You're supposed to read the file. Also, there was a security guard with a cart down in the field. They could have sent her up with the security guard in the cart. They could have called for a security guard to come get her in the cart. None of that happened. Wow. The teacher wasn't really trained to identify the issues that were happening. I mean, if you see somebody go pale, you know, short of breath, those are issues that you, as an adult who have some sort of medical training, not super extensive, but just basic
training. Sure.
You should recognize those things. So it was just level after level after level
of failures.
Once a child goes into cardiac arrest, the chance of survival drops drastically. So she went into cardiac arrest. The school, they tried to blame a peanut allergy that she had, but there was no indication that she'd had any peanuts that day. It was Halloween and there was candy, but she was so good about her allergies. She was aware. She was old enough to know too. Sure. So we knew that wasn't it. as we're getting closer to the trial, we start to negotiate or talk, whether or not we can go to a mediation to resolve the case. And from our standpoint, it was very important that if we went to mediation, they understood on that side that it wasn't just going to be money. It was going to be, we wanted this to never happen again because of all those red flags. We wanted to make sure that those red flags were seen early on because it's so easily preventable. So as part of the negotiations, as part of the settlement, we were able to get non-economic terms in the sense that teachers now, it's mandatory for them to review every child's file in their classroom and check off that they have read the file so that there's a confirmation for someone somewhere that any medical issues are now flagged.
And now, is this a district rule, or were you able to implement it for more than the district?
No, it's a district.
It's a district rule.
Yeah, as part of the district settlement, they are now required to have some sort of training for all the teachers. Just basic training with Loma Linda. Loma Linda would come out and send somebody to train them, to help them.
And for those who don't know what Loma Linda is, what is it?
It's a medical center out in San Bernardino. Okay. Yes. They would come out and then.
So mandatory training, mandatory file checks.
Yes. Additionally, they created a little memorial for her in the school. And defendants, especially schools, they're very hesitant to do this because they don't want a constant reminder to the children that there was some tragedy there. But they did do it, and we were able to have that instituted as well. And so it was all those things. It really, just those two things about the training and the checking of the files, it's really just a step to try to make sure every kid goes home, that this never happens again. Because honestly, you're a mom too. When you drop off your kids, you expect to pick them up.
Of course.
It's basic stuff.
And I'll tell you, with the cases that my office does, it always hits home when it's dealing with some failure that affects a child.
Right.
It just shouldn't happen. And what infuriates me is when the person responsible for those children, whether it's the school district, the teacher, they don't take accountability.
Right.
And unfortunately, we see that a lot where they start shifting blame, making up a peanut allergy or blaming it on the peanut allergy. So that's kind of the things that I take very seriously in my practice. And I know as a mom, I'm a mom of 2, you're a mom of 4. And so I know that we both, those are places near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, because I think we realize our kids rely on us.
Yeah.
They rely on whatever adult is there because they don't know, a lot of the times they don't know how to advocate for themselves. Yes. And so, there is the theory that when you drop off your child, the teachers are now in loco parentis. They are your child's keeper, and they have a duty to make sure that your child is safe. And as a parent, we take that very seriously because we are forfeiting, the protection of our children to somebody else because we're assuming that they're going to do it right.
And in the legal terms, it's also a special relationship that's created. So it's more than just a relationship between like a regular Joe Schmo, right? This is a school and child relationship that it's formed, and it's taken very seriously, and you can't just delegate it away.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so important to make sure that people are properly trained and that they understand that they are in a special relationship with the children. And that's really more on the school level or school board level or a company level, because employees may not always know, but it's the employer's duty to make sure that the standards are met.
Yeah. And well, I think that's great that you were able to accomplish that for your clients and under unfortunate circumstances. Now, I think we did not get to how you ended up becoming a lawyer, right? We stopped, and it's easy to go through this. So I'll tell you, I'm notorious for going from one to another. It's but it's because I get so interested in what everyone's saying. So tell me, after you did the program at the YMCA, then that was what inspired you. And then what was the next step? How did you get to knowing you were going to take that concept of being an attorney to actually implementing and becoming an attorney?
In part 2, Erika shares how she turned her childhood dream of becoming an attorney into reality. Join us on the next Verdicts in Vogue.